members of the head table, my deputy political leader, General Powell, Dr. Irvin Sweeney, Bernardo Phipps, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Good evening. I am delighted to see so many of you here today, and I wish to express my profound thanks and appreciation for the time you have reserved to attend this town hall meeting. For me, it is my very first official visit as the leader of the People's Action Movement, PAM, having been elected to the post less than 1 year ago in September 2012. Just your presence alone signifies that you are keen on knowing about developments back home in the beautiful tropical paradise of Layamiga and Woli. Unfortunately, I must warn you at the start that the true picture is not good, and what I am about to share will be tough but truthful. I promise you, however, that it is the commitment of my party, the People's Action Movement, along with other opposition parties, that are willing to forge a coalition of the willing to unite to create a better existence for the people of our Twin Island Federation. Though the situation on the ground at home is in a crisis state, I am happy to also share that our athletes overseas are currently doing us proud as they fly the flag of our nation high with their recent victories at various events throughout the world. Permit me to celebrate the achievements of the old man who is making all those young athletes wonder what is in the water of St. Kitts and Nevis. As sprint sensation Kim Collins continues to blaze his trail across the earth, he has proven that age is just a number, and the latest number that he has chalked up is 9.99 seconds, the fastest he has done in the 100 meters. Today, this man remains the national record holder in the 100 meters for his country and is defeating athletes from every nation who are half his age. But not only is Kim at an advanced age of 37 making us proud, Antoine Adams, the newest sporting ambassador for our country, is also showing signs of greatness, and it was just last week he won the gold medal at the Central America and Caribbean CAC Games in the 200 meters. It is also important to report that our junior athletes are doing well and are over in the Ukraine at the World Youth Championships, with Crystal Libert placing 9th overall in the finals of the long jump, the only Caribbean athlete to make it that far this year in that field event. Then in netball, our under-23 girls, just this past week in Antigua, secured the second place position in the OECS Netball Championship. Please show your appreciation to these fine sons and daughters of our homeland. Ladies and gentlemen, I come to you today not only as the political leader of the People's Action Movement, PAM, and not simply as the Member of Parliament for the historic town of Sandy Point, but I appear before you, most importantly, as a very concerned citizen of St. Kitts and Nevis. During our interaction here, it is my hope to enlighten you on many issues that are threatening our nation. Those will include the 2 motions of no confidence that are presently filed against the minority government and the illegitimate Prime Minister. My focus shall also be on the abuse of the electoral system, the corruption and nepotism that is now rampant within the borders of our country, the use of the police and security forces to intimidate citizens, and the new plot to steal the next general elections by gerrymandering the boundaries. But I must also share with you the stories of our brave citizens and their march for freedom, the exercise of our constitutional rights, good governance, and democracy. The tide has turned. After almost 2 decades of misrule, the people of St. Kitts and Nevis are finally turning against Dr. Douglas, whom they now regard as an illegitimate prime minister running a minority government. Every opinion poll in the past 6 months has shown that Kittitians and Nevisians are convinced that the country is moving in the wrong direction and there is need for change. The people, over 90% of them, are asking to unite in the best interest of our country and its future. Even some who once were close to Dr. Douglas have joined the ranks of the ordinary people and are calling on him to step aside, to resign, and to make room for a new birth of capable leadership that could restore confidence in the economy, the country, and our people. It may have taken long, but citizens of all political persuasions are finding evidence to warrant the constitutional removal of this leader, who has not only lost touch with the people, but has gotten the poor and working class people, but has forgotten the poor and working class people on whose backs he rode to office. That is why the people are saying this country of ours is heading in the wrong direction. That direction has led us, for the first time in almost 30 years of independence, to the International Monetary Fund, IMF. This means that we are now under severe austerity measures dictated by the IMF. We achieved this on complimentary record of being the country with the second highest national debt in the entire world, when the debt reached $3 billion. When the PAM administration, led by our first Prime Minister, Dr. the Right Honorable Sir Kennedy Simmons, demitted office in 1995, the national debt was $200 million after 15 years in office. Compare that to $3,000 million in debt by the time the present minority government entered its 17th year. The debt went from $200 million in 1995 to $3,000 million, or $3 billion, by 2012 of last year. Brothers and sisters of Layamida and Wali, as a result, the government has had to be spending most of its income to pay back the debt, not only to the IMF, but also to banks in St. Kitts and Nevis and overseas. The bad economic situation has also caused the government to default on its loan repayments and repayments of its bonds and treasury bills to the ordinary citizens and companies. Even Brimstone Hill and a number of local churches that invested in these bills have lost great sums. And the only explanation that the government has provided is poof, the public debt gone, just like that. Let us face it, any government can have economic and financial problems, especially in small developing countries like ours. But what is really disheartening is the government's attitude. They just do not care. Even right now, they are still spending and wasting our tax money on projects that are failing, one after the next. These include millions pumped into Whitegate, but after over 10 years, absolutely no development. Then there is the Kittitian Hills that is now Kittishan Heights, which has received over $100 million and to date, no income or return. Beacon Heights, that has received over $30 million and still not one dime in return. $46 million to Christophe Harbour, that is in steep financial trouble and was supposed to be a foreign direct investment. La Valley, $270 million and only mosquitoes to show for it. The only people who have been benefiting from these schemes are the family and friends of the government leaders. They have been granted lucrative contracts to build, furnish, market, and sell lands and the villas and homes in Beacon Heights, for instance. There's some of you who may know Mitchell Gums. Mitchell Gums has an exclusive contract to sell the homes at Beacon Heights. No other real estate company can sell the homes at Beacon Heights. My fellow citizens, Dr. Douglas simply does not care. He has threatened to empty the treasury to remain in office. And if he loses, then a new PAM and Unity administration will have no money to run the country. I am certain that you still can remember his reaction in 2010 when people cried about the debt. His infamous remarks in Old Road is still repeated today by him, and he says that he makes no apology for running up such a high debt. If we had any doubt about these matters, it was last year at the luncheon of the Chamber of Industry and Commerce when he again stated that he had absolutely no regrets or remorse and certainly no apology for how he has destroyed our country and the hardships that have resulted. We can all remember his remarks up to the last election in 2010 when he said, "Public debt, me." That was his response to the people who were complaining that the debt was too high and life was getting worse. Fellow citizens, brothers, sisters, members and friends, comrades, family, our leader has lost touch. He is living in another world, and he simply does not care. The economy. The very poor and vulnerable are screaming about the high cost of living. For the first time, so too are the rich and the middle class in both Nevis and St. Kitts, who are complaining about the high cost. Food prices have skyrocketed, and if you disbelieve me, come home. That's right. Come home and take a visit to the supermarkets, or call home and ask your family members about the price of food. Ask about the cost of medicines at the hospital. Ask them about the medicines that they now have to pay for, when previously it was free for the poor and the elderly. Do not take my word for it, my fellow citizens. Go ahead. Pick up that phone today and call home. Ask them about the bus fares, the high cost of electricity, the increased cost of water, school fees, school books and supplies, school uniforms. Go ahead, pick up that phone and call them. And when you call home, ask about our young women. Ask about our young women, especially single mothers, have had to be doing to survive. Ask about that. In all of the sea of economic turmoil, the government ministers and Dr. Douglas in particular continue to get rich almost every day. They own properties in the multiples, while ordinary citizens are struggling to even pay their rent. The so-called low-income homes that they sell to working class people have become a huge ripoff and a financial burden, with many of them in high arrears. These homes were built for approximately 80,000 EC dollars, but the government has been making a killing with the conditions they have applied. Firstly, no one can walk into the National Housing Corporation office and say, I have $80,000 and I want to pay off my loan. No, that is not allowed. They are forced to pay the monthly payments of $800 for the next 30 years. In the end, the people are paying EC $288,000 for an EC $80,000 home. That is how our Labour government of Dr. Douglas claims to love the poor. That, just before the last general election, the People's Action Movement informed the people that the government was secretly planning to introduce a new tax that would increase the cost of everything in the country. It was denied. But 11 months after, the people were slammed with a massive 17% value-added tax. This has added to the woes of our people. VAT has increased food, school fees, furniture, house rent, building supplies, medicines, the price of land, and when they introduced it, they even placed it on chalk. Yes, chalk. The same chalk used to teach our children. Were it not for the People's Action Movement, who argued against it, they would have never removed it. While they put VAT on medicines and food, last week they removed it from gambling in the horse racing sector. Can you imagine that? VAT on food and medicines for the elderly, but removing it from horse racing. Where is the priority of our government? And the worst of it all, even dead people have to pay VAT. The same 17% applies to funeral costs and is creating much hardship for poor families struggling to bury their loved ones. Unemployment. Every advanced country like the United States provides regular reports on the levels of unemployment. That is also so in many Caribbean countries, but in St. Kitts, the figures are hidden. But what we do know is that because of the poor state of the economy, the introduction of VAT, and the high cost of electricity, companies and businesses have been closing on a monthly basis. Jay's Shop and Save in your town, gone. Island Hopper, gone. City Drugstore, gone. Sinner, gone. Clear Harbor Call Center, gone. And those of you who were home last Christmas, such as Tazula, and were out on the town at the nightclubs, don't go looking for Fat Tuesday or Cloud Nine. They too are gone. And the latest to close its doors in coming weeks is Texperts, owned by Delil Waldwin. These closures have turned thousands of workers on the streets in search of work. Even the government has exposed itself. It claims that it has registered and employed over 2,700 unemployed persons in their latest short-term work scheme, which comes to an end after the next general election. This has been the pattern with similar schemes that have popped up at every election since 2000. So ask yourself the question, If 2,700 have been employed in the scheme, how many more unemployed people remain in St. Kitts and Nevis? Some economic experts predict that it is as high as another 4,000 at least. This means that in St. Kitts alone, we may have between 7,000 to 8,000 persons unemployed from a population of 34,000 persons. The dictator's plot. It has become a sad tale, and sometimes I do feel bad for him. But today, growing numbers of our people are referring to him as a dictator. Some say he has become the world's most notorious dictator. It is claimed that he has allowed himself to get too close to the political tendencies of the likes of some of the most brutal leaders of recent times, including the former president of Libya, Muammar Gaddafi, and other disreputable world heads of state. How could one man fall from grace so fast? And how can one man lose the support of a whole nation and not realize that his time is up and it is time to make a quiet exit? The answer given by our people at home is that this was also the experience of some of his friends, like Gaddafi, who simply did not know that their time was over. In modern usage, the term dictator is generally used to describe a leader who holds and/or abuses extraordinary amount of personal power, especially the power to make laws, without effective restraint by a legislative assembly. Dictatorships are often characterized by some of the following traits: suspension of elections and of civil liberties, proclamation of a state of emergency, rule by decree, repression of political opponents without abiding by rule of law procedures. These include single-party state and cult of personality. Those are not my words. That is the definition from Wikipedia. But let us examine what has been taking place at home. About 8 months ago, on December 11, 2012, the two members from PAM in the National Assembly, myself and Eugene Hamilton, and two from CCM, Vance Amry and Mark Grantley, filed a motion of no confidence against the government and Dr. Douglas as Prime Minister. Up to 4 months after, in April of this year 2013, there was no response from the Speaker of the National Assembly to say when and if the motion would be heard. In the meantime, letters were written by the top private sector and religious organizations between January and March, urging both the Speaker and the Prime Minister to have the motion debated, but absolutely no action followed. Then on 1st March, the 4 parliamentarians from PAM and CCM were joined by Dr. Timothy Harris and Sam Conda in writing to the Governor General urging his intervention. We indicated that it was the intention of all 6 of us to vote for the motion of no confidence and that we do not support Dr. Douglas as Prime Minister. Therefore, this meant that he no longer commanded a majority of support from the elected representatives in Parliament. With tensions rising in the country, we, the 6 of us, took to court on 3rd April 2013, asking the court to intervene to protect our constitutional rights and to force the government to have the debate and vote on the motion. The government asked the court for an extension to July 11th to give the lawyer more time to prepare. We again wrote the Speaker on 11th June 2013, 6 months after the filing of the motion. Then on 24th June 2013, the Speaker wrote to Mark Brantley as leader of the opposition in response to a letter sent to him 11th June 2013. The Speaker responded and said, the matter of the motion was now sub judice as a claim had been filed in the High Court. 2. As a consequence of the matter being sub judice, Standing Order 43 would not permit the motion to be debated in the National Assembly. 3. Any debate of the motion would have to await the court's decision in the claim. Therefore, on July 4, 2013, we instructed our lawyers to discontinue the court matter, and based on what the Speaker said in his June 24th letter. The Speaker repeated his position again last week, Monday, July 8th, at the start of Parliament, saying once the matter was in court, he will not introduce it to Parliament. Now, following that same meeting of Parliament, the Speaker instructed his lawyers on 11 July 2013 to take court action to force us to keep the matter in court. I hope you are understanding what I am saying. The Speaker said in the first instance that he cannot hear the motion once the matter is before the court. But now, he is taking us to court because we removed it from the court. Can someone explain this to me? Really? This is just another ploy between the Speaker and Douglas to delay having the motion heard. However, I wish to report that yet a second motion of no confidence was filed on Wednesday, 3rd July 2013. So now, there are 2 motions filed against the government and no court matter from our side. But yet, every single excuse is being used by Dr. Douglas to frustrate the will of the people. He knows that he will lose the vote. And when he does, he only has 3 days to resign or call fresh elections. And if he does neither, it is the duty of the Governor General to dismiss him. Therefore, all we are asking for is either for the motion to be heard or fresh elections be held immediately using the existing boundaries. With six of the elected not supporting Dr. Douglas as Prime Minister, this makes him an illegitimate leader. And with 6 of us not supporting the government and will vote for the motion of no confidence, it makes the government itself a minority government. As an illegitimate Prime Minister and with a minority government, they cannot be allowed to stall the movement for change in government and the ushering in of a government of national unity. And so, recognizing that he's about to lose the next election, the illegitimate Prime Minister has become desperate and dangerous. He has been calling for a revolution and reminding citizens that he has in the past and is capable again of inciting people. It was only a few months ago while on radio, he confessed that in 1995, he overthrew the democratically elected government of Dr. Sir Kennedy Simmons. His words, not mine. His confession, not my accusation. Weeks before the elections of 2010, he issued a threat that if Eugene Hamilton were to be elected, there would be a revolution in the country. His words again, not mine. He went further to repeat the threat, this time against my former leader, Lindsey Grant. And he said that if Lindsey Grant were to become Prime Minister in this country, there would be a revolution in the country. Again, his words, not mine. In 2004, and again in recent months, he stated that he can incite and said to his supporters, remember in 1993, I incited and I can do it again. Of late, when he started to realize that the country was turning against him and his majority in parliament was under threat, he told the opposition leader Mark Brantley of the Concerned Citizens Movement, CCM in Nevis, that if his government fails, blood would be on his Brantley's hands. With all of these threats, not once has the police cautioned him or brought him in for questioning on these very serious charges. The police leadership is afraid and is also colluding with the unpopular administration. March for Democracy. Earlier this month, when the people decided they had had enough and wanted to mount a protest march, instead of the police commissioner allowing citizens to exercise their constitutional rights to free expression, demonstration, and assembly, he tried to block them, denying permission. But like a mighty army, never seen before in St. Kitts, the people answered to my defiant call that no one will prevent them from doing what is allowed by the Constitution. Just hours before we were due to start, the commissioner called for a meeting with me and buckled and granted the permission. Over 5,000 citizens, rich, poor, white, black, PAM, Labour, CCM, and independents took to the streets of Bastille in peaceful protest. This sent a shock wave to the government, and it has caused them to put more pressure on the police to suppress the opposition. The collusion with the police got so bad that the commissioner himself told his officers to prepare for mass arrest, the use of non-lethal weapons, and the crushing of what he called the insurgents. Yes, my fellow citizens, that is what our commissioner called our people, insurgents. This is a term only reserved for the world's worst terrorist. Then on Friday, 5th July 2013, under the instruction of the government, there the police pulled our former leader, Mr. Lindsey Grant, over the police barricade and arrested him for obstruction in a response that surprised the authorities. Hundreds of ordinary citizens chanting, "Free Mr. Grant, free Mr. Grant," marched to police headquarters demanding the release of Grant. The people waved the big guns and weapons of the police as they stood their ground. Eventually, they had to release Mr. Grant, who was welcomed by the people as a hero of the struggle. My fellow citizens, it gets worse. As of last week, the government started to bug the telephones of myself, Mr. Grant, my two deputies, Janelle and Eugene. In addition, they are also bugging the phones of the leaders of the PLP, Dr. Timothy Harris and Sam Condor, our partners and family in a future unity government. And if that is not enough, they have assigned police officers to trail our every move in the country, following us and reporting on our activities. I ask you, my fellow citizens, why has our country gotten to this state? And more importantly, what do you intend to do about it? But no matter the intimidation, no matter the threats, the People's Action Movement and its partners in the CCM and PLP, the family of unity, will never allow our democracy to be overtaken by the dictatorial rule of a government that, again I say, has lost its way. Boundary changes. The dictionary defines desperation as a state of despair, typically one that results in rash or extreme behavior. This minority government of ours is experiencing a sense of hopelessness and is in despair. It is desperate. The latest plot is to change the boundaries, both in St. Kitts and Nevis. This we cannot allow to happen. A government that is in the minority and illegitimate cannot abuse state power to create an unfair and illegal advantage to win the election. Now, I wish for you to listen carefully to what they plan to do. They plan to change constituency number 8, which now runs from Connery, St. Peter's to Atlas. They now want to make St. Peter's a constituency of its own, with keys, and this would become the new constituency number 8. They are planning to mix up constituency number 7 and 8. So now, the new number 7 would be Keyon, Atlas, Lodge, Borio, Molineux, and Phillipses. The plan here is to affect Dr. Timothy Harris of PLP and Pam Eugene Hamilton, make them vie against each other. Number 6 would become the region from Christchurch, Mansion, Tabernacle, Bellevue, Sadlers, Harris's, Lynch's, Gateway, and part of St. Paul's up to Douglas's Avenue. Number 5, my constituency, which is the town of Sandy Point. Dr. Douglas is planning to change it to include half of St. Paul's from Douglas's Avenue, Newton Ground, and Sandy Point itself. Number 4, they plan to run from Brimstone Hill through to Old Road, Franklands, and all of the parish of Trinity, which includes Challengers, Palmetto Point, Boyds, Trinity Village, West Farm, and McKinley Heights. Number 3, they plan to remove McKinley, which is West Bastille number 3. They plan to remove McKinley right down to Palmetto Point and to add McKnight and Irish Town. Number 2, remove McKnight and Irish Town and add Taylor's and New Pan site. Constituency number 1, East Bastille. East Park Range would be removed along the Taylor's, New Pan site, and the north and west of the square. I'm serious. There is also a second proposal, and in that second proposal, it is proposed to split Sandy Point in 2. We said to you, that no minority government and an illegitimate prime minister should be allowed to get away with this. We will protest and take every single legal action which is necessary. Moving forward, despite these challenges to our democracy, we are confident that we will prevail. For the good of the people must always prevail. The immediate future of our country lies in the formation of a government of national unity. This new government will embrace people of all political sides who are willing to work together for the good of the country. In this new dispensation, a government of national unity will introduce the following to enhance the principles and tenets of good governance. Term limits for prime ministers. Amen. No more than 2 terms. Set dates for elections, both federal and local leaders elections. Integrity in public life legislation to help stamp out corruption in high places. Constitutional and electoral reform. Freedom of information legislation. Legislation that gives people the right to recall non-performing parliamentarians. Legislation that demands a referendum on certain important changes, such as the distribution of land. On the economic front, PAM, as part of a unity government, will ensure that immediate economic relief is provided to the people, especially the poor and the elderly. This shall include a 25% reduction in the surcharge for electricity, removal of the 6% custom service charge on electricity, no disconnection of supply on public holidays and weekends, as is being done today, allowing consumers to enter into affordable payment plans to reduce and pay off their outstanding arrears, and debt forgiveness on all arrears owed to the government before 2012, when the electricity department became SCENEC. In terms of that, we intend to ensure that this tax be removed from selected food items, removed from medicines, especially those much needed by the poor and those with chronic illnesses such as diabetes and hypertension. We will ensure that the lands which were acquired by our first national hero, Sir Robert Gratcher, and paid for by our first Prime Minister, Dr. the Right Honorable Sir Kennedy Simmons, are preserved as part of the patrimony of the people of this great country of ours. Though we welcome investments and tourism development, we also recognize the importance of agriculture, and our people must be given an opportunity to own and farm the land of their birth. The selling of our land to foreigners in large quantities, such as the 1,200 acres attempted last year by the government to folks in Dubai, will not be allowed to take place. This is our effort to protect your heritage and reserve your piece of the rock for you and your children. In concluding, to everyone at home, it is obvious that change is on its way. It is only the loyalists of the illegitimate Prime Minister who appear willing to sacrifice themselves for a man who has demonstrated that his only interest has been to use, abuse, and then discard them until the next general election. We pray that they would recognize that it is only at election time he wishes to sell land to them, to make houses available, to offer salary increases, to fix their roads, and to promise the world, and even more than the world. These are signs of an uncaring person who does not have the interests of the poor at heart and has forgotten his oath to do right to all citizens. This situation cannot be allowed to continue. A government of national unity will treat our people with respect and show more concern for the poor and working class. In closing, I invite you to join our united effort as we work to restore confidence in our country and to rebuild our nation. I am committed to do whatever is necessary within the law to save our nation and to return it to its glorious days of prosperity. Given that I am here in the United States, this bastion of democracy and rule of law, I issue this call to President Barack Obama to pay close attention to what is happening in St. Kitts and Nevis. It is time for you, Mr. President, to use your good offices and the diplomatic skills of the State Department to attempt much needed moral persuasion, to encourage the government of my land to respect our Constitution and to allow the flow of democracy to prevail. The United States must never again take its eyes off of what is happening in the Caribbean. Otherwise, more dictators will emerge and they will flourish. Not only in St. Kitts and Nevis, but this undemocratic disease will spread to other nations. Take action, Mr. President. The people at home are ready and are committed to moving forward in unity. I ask you to join us. Thank you.